Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell here live on a Tuesday, election day. Hopefully everybody out listening went out and voted today. Should have thrown my sticker on, but yeah, it's in the wallet still.
I should have too.
Oh, well.
Not in the pocket. Can't do it.
Yep. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the absolutely monster Saturday. We're going to get into that recap, just tons of amazing games, but I want to kick it over to you, Joe. We both took in a sporting, well, I shouldn't say sporting event, college football game this last weekend. And yeah, your weather looked quite a bit better than mine was, but how was
yes, it did.
How was College Station?
College Station was awesome. We got down there Friday night and hit the town. They have this nice stretch of restaurants, bars called Northgate, and it's basically just like, we might be talking about like 15, 20 restaurants just all kind of cramped together in in this one small area not too far from campus. So that was a lot of fun, going out and checking out a bunch of different spots. Went to can't even name the number of different places that we found that night. So got drenched once on our way walking, which then turned into running from one spot to another. Ended up just clouds just opened up and down comes the rain for a very short stretch, which was just phenomenal. So ended up soaking wet for a little bit of a stretch until we found this little shop and just bought a shirt. Two of my just bought a new shirt.
Nice.
So carried around my soaking wet, my effectively turn into a, like a washcloth for the night. So had me and a buddy were basically looking like thing one, thing two with our matching shirts for the night, but whatever, still had a great time. And then 11 a.m. start for the 11 a.m. kickoff for the game the next morning, and did a little bit of tailgating. Not much. We ended up getting there a little later than we had originally hoped, but
what's their tailgate scene like there? Is it a lot of like parking lots, houses? Okay.
It's like they're very proud of their tailgate scene. It's not tailgating. It's not tailgating. It's a bunch of, sponsors with canopies up and, like you have to basically like rent out your spot in that parking lot or the surrounding area. And, it's not like Wisconsin tailgating that most, if not all of our listeners know about, which is park your freaking pickup, offload the grill and offload the coolers and fill up the flatbed with empties and, and just go to town. So yeah, it's a completely different, their version of tailgating is extremely weak, but they were very proud of it. And I was like, you guys don't even know what tailgating is if you think this is tailgating. So that was a little disappointing. I was honestly fine not spending as much time tailgating as we had hoped, because it was not a rowdy atmosphere. It was a very like I said, have to rent out space for your giant canopy, and each canopy had, like a sign for some sort of company or some sort of organization, and it wasn't tailgating.
It's kind of hard to get rowdy though, and your team's not going to make a bowl game.
True, but I mean, look at the Brewer tailgates. No matter how bad they are, though, that tailgate scene is always lit. People will go to Brewer games just for the tailgate. People will go to Camp Randall just for that scene. People go. I mean, Wisconsinites will go for the tailgate more than for the game. So they don't know what it is, but yeah. And then, Kyle Field was really sweet, especially just from the outside. It was really, really gorgeous stadium. You get inside and it's, pretty typical to most stadiums, most really big stadiums. But my favorite part probably was that they had literally like an entire sideline from field level all the way to the top of the bleachers. That was their student section.
That's sweet.
It was insane. So biggest student section in the country. They stand the entire game. They stick around for the halftime show with the band, which is just kind of cool. And it was just a really the very student led section, and, stadium of 110,000 or so, and not quite filled every single seat, but most of them were full until the end when the game was pretty much out of hand. Texas A&M ended up losing that ball game 41-24 to Florida, and they were pretty much manhandled the entire game. I mean, Florida ended up over 200 passing yards, over 200 rushing yards. Keep your eye on Trevor Etienne, Travis's brother. He finally was kind of given the rock quite a bit. He ended up 17 carries for 80 yards. If we know anything about, assuming that the talent runs in the family, Trevor Etienne might be a scary future, at least college back. He's a little small, but so was Travis. Yeah. Yep. So, and Travis Etienne, obviously we saw him kill it his entire career at Clemson. We're now seeing him kill it at least over the last month and a half with the Jags. So if Trevor's anything like Travis, Gators got a nice W with him. What was disappointing on the A&M side was that Connor Wegman did not play. He and a bunch of other teammates had the flu all week.
There's almost 20 players that had the flu.
It was ridiculous.
They need to quit making out.
This is not the Sam Darnold flu, the Sam Darnold flu mono. But it sounded like the night before it said that he had been cleared. There was a report that he'd been cleared, and that must have been a false report because Haynes King ended up starting, and Haynes King is just bad. He had he just looks. It reminds me of Graham Mertz, where very high end recruit and just doesn't. I don't know, just ain't it, I guess, and yeah, that was a little disappointing, but. Those two wide receivers, Evan Stewart, true freshman, he was getting peppered with targets. I'm sitting there looking at him and thinking this could be the next Devontae Smith. Just based on size profile, how quick he was, his route running, and everything. He looks like kind of Devonta Smith 2.0. And then Muhsin Muhammad's kid, who is named Muhsin Muhammad III. That dude is legit as well. So those two wide receivers are awesome. Look even better in person than on TV. And then Devin Achane, which if you don't know that name by now,
shame on you.
Learn it. Yeah. He's a freaking beast. So overall, Florida stomped A&M, but at least you see some pieces on the A&M side that you can look forward to from the skill position.
Nice. Yeah, I took in the Badger Maryland game this last weekend. Badgers, of course, won that bad boy, which was nice. Maryland's coming in with a pretty nice record, had some decent wins in the Big Ten season, but Badgers been rolling with Jim Leonard outside of that Michigan State overtime loss, which could have been a win, but again, 3-1 under Jim Leonard, so we'll see what ends up happening there. Took in a little bit of coffee, breakfast prior to the game, had a couple bloodies at the bar, and then walked over to the game. And luckily, my season tickets are under the overhang under the upper deck because it was raining pretty much the entire game, just kind of 40, 50 degree weather and rain and just crappy. And I was like, damn, this is really crappy. And then I got home later on in the evening and was watching the highlights of all the other games that I missed while I was at the game. And I think I'm convinced that Texas A&M was the only place it did not rain on Saturday, because every other game, Georgia, Tennessee, it rained. LSU, Bama got some rain towards the end of the game. Like literally every highlight I was watching, Ohio State at Northwestern.
That was
everybody
that
had
was some
rain.
brutal
So
weather.
yeah, so not a great weather weekend all around, but did make for some fun games that we'll get into here in a second.
Yeah, it was about 60 degrees at kickoff at A&M. Not much in terms of clouds in the sky, which that ended up getting a little old by the game's end, because you could feel that sun I got a little sunburnt. You could feel that sun pretty hard by game's end, but overall gorgeous gorgeous in College Station weather-wise. Yeah. Got all the rain out of the way the night before on my little walk in between spots.
Yeah, rather have that though than have to deal with that during the game. So
1,000%.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Type in YouTube into that search bar. Then when you get to YouTube, go to the search bar there, type in Dead Arm Sports, will be the first thing that pops up. Subscribe, click the bell so that way you know when our live episodes drop. We do monitor that chat, so you can ask us questions there. If you miss our live YouTube, go to YouTube, click subscribe, click the bell, so that way you know when our episodes drop. But fear not, you can send us questions to our individual socials. Joe can be found at DasJel, that's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC, that's at DASJPEC. Send us in any questions there. Yeah, send in your questions, Jerome. But also subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of that review. We'll get you some swag sent out. NCAA Week 10 recap alluded to all of the phenomenal games. And man, I could pick from a handful of games right now to kick off the list, but I want to talk about
loaded.
I want to talk about the man with some of the biggest cojones I have ever seen, and that is Mr. Brian Kelly, going for 2 and the win. Overtime, night game, LSU, storm in the field, ruining Alabama's season. No more playoff hopes for Bama. LSU is in the driver's seat of that SEC West division, and just an absolute classic that we will relive for years and years to come. I mean, that game had just about everything in it. Alabama takes the lead with about 4 minutes left. Saban, we'll come back to this a little bit, Shell, but ends up going for 2 there to try and get their lead to 6 points. They miss, so it's a 5-point lead. LSU comes back, scores a touchdown, ends up with a 3-point lead, and then Alabama comes down, kicks a tying field goal. But then obviously overtime, Bama scores right away. LSU, Jaden Daniels, QB draw, runs it in from 25 yards out to kick off the overtime period on that first play. And Brian Kelly's like, nope, we're going for 2 in the win here. And hell of a game there. But guess your takeaways from this one, obviously huge playoff implications here. And then also want to get into Saban too. Again, I'd alluded to that when they took the lead, instead of just kicking that extra point, knowing that if you were to give up a touchdown there, you could come down and get the ball back and kick a field goal to end up winning the game as opposed to tying it. But just kind of an interesting decision there. I'm sure the analytics are saying go for 2, but yeah, just a crazy finish to that one.
Yeah, I mean, fun fact here, Jason Taylor's son, Mason, come on, Jason, like you can't do better than that. Jason and Mason, really. Mason Taylor, freshman tight end, ends up the ones snagging that 2-point conversion on that flat route. So, but yeah, I mean, you got to give Cojones Grandes award absolutely goes to Brian Kelly here. That's for the Blancos out there. We'll skip that. That's Big Balls award. And hell yeah, Brian Kelly. I've been saying this all season. I think LSU got an absolute gem in Brian Kelly. We saw right away that Notre Dame really missed BK from the start of that season. And we'll talk a little bit more Notre Dame in a bit here, but I mean, he's such a freaking legit coach. And it's insane that it feels like he's underrated. I mean, he at this point, you know, you wanted to bring up Saban. Let's do it now. Is Brian Kelly the top coach in the SEC now? I mean, based on the way that he's been able to turn around this LSU program. Now, granted, it's not like it's a massive turnaround. That team obviously had a ton of talent before he got there, brought in some talent, some additional talent through the transfer portal. But that's an amazing win. That's a massive win. And like you said, that propels them over Alabama right now in that SEC West. If they can hang on for the rest of the season and end up facing Georgia, presumably in the SEC championship game, obviously they would need to win that game to make the playoff. But to even be in this conversation after LSU had a below 500 record last year under Coach Go Tigers, Coach O, it's just an amazing way that he's been able to turn this program around in less than a half. I mean, in about a half a season, where it took Saban and yes, Alabama was more down at the time when Saban took over, but it took Saban a full 2 years really to get that program back on track. BK's able to do it in less than a season and really get LSU the momentum that they're going to have going into this upcoming recruiting class, going into this upcoming transfer portal in the offseason. We might be looking at an LSU team that's going to be able to hang with Alabama, with Georgia, with any team in the country for as long as Brian Kelly's there, because I don't know if necessarily Saban has slipped, but you can absolutely say that the transfer portal has hurt them because they've got guys that maybe will commit to Bama, not get playing time their freshman year and leave. So their depth is not the same that it used to be. So they can't just rack off, SEC title after SEC title after national championship after national championship after SEC title after college football playoff appearance again and again and again and again, because they don't have the depth that they used to have. And you're seeing that with this team already. We've had the transfer portal in for like a season and a half. And they've already, I mean, you can already see in that wide receiver core, it's not the same that it was just a couple of years ago. So this transfer portal is hurting Saban. And if Brian Kelly, he's a bit younger than Saban, he's less grouchy. You saw Kelly in the off season making those really cringy dance videos with Jalen Daniels. Yeah, they were cringy, but it's also a way for him to relate to his players, where Saban is like, let's run a factory here. I'll get you into the NFL, but you're not going to like the way that we get you there. Brian Kelly seems like he's kind of a joyous dude, and he's like, I'm going to be a more player-friendly coach now. Back when he started at Notre Dame, he was kind of, I guess, Saban-y, where it was a factory. It was, like a boot camp. I think he's shifted and he's had players quit on him. He's had early on at his in his Notre Dame career, he had a lot of players that basically hated him. At this point, it really looks like players like him, and it's working, and those recruits are going to keep coming, and those transfers are going to keep coming. And LSU's always been a talented program, and now you've got a good coach, a very, very good coach with all that talent. I don't see LSU going anywhere anytime soon.
No, I don't either. And I don't know that the transfer portal necessarily hurt Saban at all, but I don't know that he embraced it as much as some of these other coaches have. And some of these other coaches, like Brian Kelly, saw the transfer portal as a way to jumpstart that program. A lot of times you come in as a new coach, you're working with the previous regime's recruits, and it takes you a while to build that back up with the guys that you want. But Brian Kelly has gone out and done a good job of recruiting in the short time that he's been there, and also hit that transfer portal hard. I mean, Jaden Daniels is the reason why they're 7-2 right now. With Max Johnson there last year, no way in hell they're doing this.
Hell no.
So Brian Kelly did an awesome job with that. And like you said, I don't see LSU going anywhere either. LSU is a premier program that kids want to go to down in the southern region of the United States. And they were just lacking that solid coach there before. Yeah, Coach O was there, but Coach O had his issues from before. And yeah, he had the one season, but that was just kind of the stars aligning with Joe Burrow there.
Literally the most talented team of all time. At least offensively.
Yeah.
That doesn't have anything to do with coaching. I have to say they got pretty damn lucky that Joe Burrow decided to transfer to that school. Otherwise, who knows what that team even would have ended up being.
Yeah. But Brian Kelly, the future is bright there. He's going to start turning around some of these kids from Louisiana that were going to Georgia, going to Alabama, and seeing what Brian Kelly's doing, the life that he's infused back into this program after all of the scandals and allegations and everything that were going on off of the field, and just kind of the turmoil that this program's been in the last couple of years. And man, the future is bright there, and they very well could be stealing the throne from Alabama, and not only the SEC West division, but in a couple of years be right up there with Georgia.
Think so too. Well, why don't we stick with the Brian Kelly theme and go over to his former squad, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, getting the dominating win over Clemson, 35-14. I don't know. Your opinion, does this say more about Marcus Freeman kind of getting that team together? And now it's, it seems like it's been a couple of weeks where they've started to kind of turn things around. Or does it say more about Clemson being a total fraud?
I think it's more about Clemson being a total fraud. Notre Dame they're a solid program this year. They're not elite like they have been in the past, but we talked about it going into that preview last week that Clemson just kept sneaking out some of these games that they probably could have lost, should have lost, and finally met their match with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's defense had pick six. They had another red zone or another interception right there at the goal line when Cade Klubnik came in for his one pass, one pick, solid stats there. But no, yikes. I think it was just the ACC's down this year. North Carolina, Derek Mays kind of turned that program around. They're at an 8-1 right now, I think, too, but they still don't feel like an 8-1 team. They're just, I don't know. The ACC's down this year. I'm very thankful that Notre Dame beat Clemson, because I think Clemson would have just gotten absolutely destroyed. Would have been a fraud if they would have ended up in that college football playoff. But yeah, they met their match, and these two teams that lost, the first two games we're talking about, Alabama, Clemson, were two teams that were 1-2, 2-1 in the preseason. How many years in a row these last few years of national championship hopes? And you wonder if you've kind of seen that peak of where their programs are going to reach, and we're on that downward trajectory now. But it'll be interesting.
What does Clemson do now at quarterback? DJ and Klubnik's thrown outside of that Florida State garbage time game, which he only threw a couple passes in that game too. He's only thrown 5 passes on when he's come in total.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how necessarily how ready he is. Maybe it's just that Dabo doesn't want to give him the full reign. I don't really know. But what does Clemson do at quarterback now? If you don't, I almost feel like Dabo keeps playing DJ because he's afraid of losing him to that transfer portal. But is it time for him to just say, screw it, and it's time to embrace Cade Klubnik? I don't know. I honestly don't know why he keeps playing DJ, because like you said, they keep squeaking out wins, and wins they don't necessarily deserve. They are just skating by.
Yeah, and DJ, that game, he had some really ugly throws. And again, Cade Klubnik came in for the one play possession after DJ had done terrible up to that point, comes in, throws a pick on that first pass. So
Yikes.
and that ended up going back to DJ. DJ then threw that pick six, but it was an ugly stretch of Clemson football for a little bit, but I don't know what you necessarily do right now. I mean, your playoff hopes are done. There's no way that they're going to sneak in right now, because I would put a 2-loss Alabama team over Clemson.
1,000%.
But I don't think, if you're Dabo right now, you need to figure out what you want your team to look like for next year, because I don't know that DJ is in their plans for next year. You've got Cade Klubnik there, that if you think he's the future of the program, you have to turn the reins over to him. And I just don't see DJ coming back next year unless for some reason they stick with him. He turns it around and figures his shit out. But I think he's going to end up hitting that portal, going to another Power 5 school that's good, that can be competing for division title. But I don't know. I think you have to move on to the young guy and go from there with it, and just kind of get him some confidence in the next couple games, turn it over to him and see what he's got. But I don't know. We keep beating the dead horse with this, but this just reminds me so much of the Oklahoma situation last year with Spencer Rattler. Granted, Cade Klubnik is by no means Caleb Williams, but it just seems like one of those that you had a guy that was highly touted and it's just not there. And I think a fresh change of scenery would maybe benefit DJ too. I think his time at Clemson's coming to.
I think so too. I'm there with you.
Yep. All right. All right. Georgia, Tennessee. This is a game that I was excited. I had it on my upset radar last week. Georgia 8-point favorites, thought Tennessee was going to come in, put up a fight, and Georgia's good. Georgia's really good. Ended up with a 27-13 victory. I mean, Hendon Hooker, man, rough game for him and his Heisman hopes there. I mean, it's one rough game on the season so far, but that Georgia defense is legit. And they knew Kirby Smart had a fantastic game plan for shutting down that Tennessee offense, and just Tennessee couldn't get anything going there. Hendon Hooker, I think he was under 200 yards passing, and then I think he had like 18 carries for 17 yards or something like that too. So it was just something just atrocious on the ground too. So just absolutely bottled up. And yeah, Georgia, I expect to be number one in the college football playoff, which will be releasing shortly.
Yeah, that would be absolutely deserving for him to be, or for Georgia to be that number one squad. Yeah, I look at this, the fact that Georgia only scored 3 points in the second half. That's my only red flag with that team. But again, they were up 24-6 at half. So they're just thinking, hey, let's pound the ball. Let's eat the clock. Let's just get out of here with a W. I mean, that Tennessee offense, you mentioned Hooker's numbers, horrible. So yeah, I mean, that Georgia defensive line, we knew it. That D line, that front seven is absolutely loaded, just like it was last year. They've got some solid defensive back pieces as well. So that defense is there to stay. If Stetson Bennett can not be terrible, which he hasn't been terrible, I think Georgia is, they deserve that number one overall spot in the country. The way the score is almost deceiving, 27-13. It kind of makes it seem like it was a little bit closer than it was, that final score, but Georgia commanded that whole game, and that Tennessee offensive line just did not stand a chance that entire game against that Georgia defensive front. So, Kirby Smart, I guess, it's him, Saban, Brian Kelly now is make 3 best coaches in the country, all sitting there in the SEC. I mean, you can make that argument.
Yeah.
And right now with Kirby's squad and the way that, he's a defensive minded coach, and the defense is what's holding this team, holding it down right now. So Yeah, I'd say Georgia right there at number 1 for sure. Little disappointed in Tennessee's output. I thought that they would stand a bit more of a chance, but it was never close. The game was really never in doubt. Speaking of top 3 teams, I got to kick it over to that Ohio State Northwestern lack of a performance from the Buckeyes. The weather was crappy in that Chicago area, and I think that helped, that helped Northwestern a little bit in this game. But Northwestern has 0 wins this season in the United States. Their only win is in Ireland against Nebraska week 1.
Yep.
So for Ohio State to only win this game 21-7, completely unacceptable. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at CJ Stroud. He's got to put up, that offense has to put up more points than 21 against a lackluster team like Northwestern, with all the weapons that he has, the way that Marvin Harrison Jr. has just been going off every week. And Travion Henderson, Igbuka, like this team is loaded on all levels of the offense. 21 points against Northwestern. That's an indictment on CJ Stroud. And I'm sitting here wondering what these NFL scouts think of this, because we know the history of Ohio State quarterbacks, garbage in the NFL. We can't find one example, a single example of an Ohio State quarterback that was great or do we even want to say above average in the NFL? I don't think there's one. So I wonder what the CJ Stroud's NFL stock is going. If it's going to stick around at right now, the consensus number 1, between number 1 and 2. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case by the end of the season, because yeah, he's a sweet athlete, he's got a sweet arm, but he's not necessarily mobile. He's always consistent. His entire time at OSU is throwing to wide open receivers. What has he shown you that he deserves to be the number 1 overall pick?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of recency bias, but former alumni Ohio Buckeye Justin Fields had a NFL record-setting weekend last weekend on the ground, but not anything sustainable right now. So I agree with you there, though. Ohio State always seems to have a quarterback they can plug into that lineup that is national championship worthy. But yeah, I mean, what was going on with Ohio State this weekend? Like you said, 21 points against Northwestern. Granted, yeah, the weather's not great there, but still, you've got arguably the best running back tandem in the entire country with Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams there. And to put up 21 points, not great at all. But I don't know. I mean, you like that the defense only gave up 7 there, but CJ Stroud definitely took a hit, not only in his draft stock, but in that Heisman race too. He was kind of leading the way along with Hendon Hooker. It seemed like the two of them were 1-2, and both of them took huge hits going into this last weekend with their play. Granted, CJ Stroud team ended up winning, so you'd think maybe it's just a little blip and you'd like to see a nice turnaround next couple weeks, but he's got Michigan looming at the end of the season, which he did not play well in Ann Arbor last weekend, home game this year. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I don't know.
I just think there's a massive difference between Fields and Stroud in terms of athletic ability.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that's obvious, but I mean, look at Justin Fields right now. That's how he's getting by, is amazing athletic ability. He's got like 5 60-yard runs on the season for the Bears. Stroud's not going to be able to do that. And that's where Fields, that's the difference making plays that he is making right now. So I don't know if I'm an NFL GM, I'm a little bit scared of CJ Stroud. It's kind of giving me some Dwayne Haskins, Cardale Jones types of vibes. And maybe that's probably a little harsh, but because I think Stroud's going to be a better player than either of those two. But look at their college production. Haskins and Cardale Jones awesome numbers. But again, amazing skill position players, and they would generally take advantage of weak defenses.
Running out of time here for NCAA.
Yeah,
One more game I want to throw at you, Jal. Just a really quick takeaway. USC keeps rolling in that Pac-12, but you concerned about their defense? I mean, they're putting up a fuck ton of points, but 35 points to Cal? Jesus.
Okay. Check out these games recently. Cal, a 6-point win, 41-35. The week before, USC beats Arizona 45-37. The week before that, they lose 43-42 against Utah. I mean, they had a couple other weeks, but where it's not as big of a discrepancy, but that was against Arizona State and Washington State. The week before that, only beating Oregon State by 3. Yes, in Corvallis, but a 3-point win. If you want to be considered as one of the top teams in the country, you got to clean that up. Yes, this offense is incredibly dynamic, and this is what Lincoln Riley is known for. That's his side of the ball, obviously, is the offense. I can't put them in my top 4. I think right now, if Oregon, USC end up playing in this Pac-12 title game, Oregon's at least a 6-point favorite. Yeah. The way that they're playing right now, and the way that USC is giving up points, there's major concern. And in Lincoln Riley's defense, USC was an absolute shithole for a long time. So he came in and he fixed his side of the ball right away. Granted, a lot of that was, him bringing guys over from Oklahoma, bringing in Jordan Addison, bringing in Travis Dye from Oregon. So it's going to take some time to fix that defense. But if he runs this team the same way, with just 100% of emphasis on the offense, like he did at Oklahoma, there's a ceiling with the Trojans.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be, we've seen regression with this defense as the season's gone on. They let up 35 to Cal. What? That's asinine. So yeah, there's absolute concern here. If you're a Trojan fan and you're thinking, hey, we're a year away, I don't think that next year you're in the mix unless there's a massive turnaround on that defense. They do have defensive talent, but like I said, Lincoln Riley, the way he ran OU was, let's just outscore everybody. And there was a ceiling. They would always end up as a 2-loss team or worse. And I think USC ends up this season as a 2 to 3 loss team. They've only dropped 1 so far, but you've got UCLA coming up in a couple of weeks, Notre Dame, the final or the week after that. And then if they make the Pac-12 championship game, you've got that game that's going to be likely against Oregon. So I think this ends up being at probably a 3-loss team is probably where I see them right now, which that's still a very strong turnaround. And that at least you've got that offense solved, which is something that USC has not been able to solve since Pete Carroll left.
Speaking of 3-loss teams, Joe, the Colts have definitely lost more than 3 games and hence fired their coach.
3-win team.
Reich. Frank Reich no longer part of the Colts. Saw the writing on the wall there. Didn't know if that was going to be an in-season move or post-regular season, but ended up changing guard there. And what better way to restart your franchise by giving interim tag to somebody that has never coached in college or NFL. Jeff Saturday, welcome aboard. Former all-star center there, but man,
my favorite update I got of the weekend was former 6-time Pro Bowl center and ESPN analyst Jeff Saturday is the head coach. He's like, what? He had been a consultant for that team over the last 2 or 3 seasons, but I mean, come on, a consultant role You're making that guy the head coach. That's like me being, hey, I'm going to go be a consultant for Google and tell them, hey, you're, this, that, or the other thing. And, oh, okay, now you're the CEO. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, the Colts already aren't putting up points for squats. They don't have a quarterback. I feel bad for Jeff Saturday in this for the finishing off this season, because watch him end up going 2 whatever to finish off this season. And then it's like, oh, well, now he's out of consideration for a head coaching job for however many years. I do not see the Colts winning many games here. I mean, Raiders, Eagles, that's probably, Raiders, who the hell knows what's up with that team?
Yeah, Jesus.
But Raiders, Eagles, Steelers, Cowboys, Vikings, Chargers, Giants, Texans. I could see maybe 2 wins to finish out this season for Jeff Saturday. So now he's sitting, he starts off his career 2-6. That's not exactly a recipe for success. So maybe Jim Irsay is saying, hey, Jeff, come in here, win whatever games you can, or try to lose all of them so we have a higher draft pick. And, I won't hold it against you. Maybe it's a placeholder spot too. I'm kind of sitting here thinking Jim Irsay, former Colt quarterback, going after former Colts quarterback Jim Harbaugh in the offseason. And maybe Jeff Saturday is just a placeholder to finish out this season. That's kind of what I'm honestly thinking here. If he can pry him away from Ann Arbor with a massive payday.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there's no way Jeff Saturday is a long-term answer here. It's just I don't understand. I mean, shit, go after Ted Lasso. I mean, at least he's got some experience. He can turn around the program, but no, I mean, good for Jeff Saturday. If that's in his goals, wanting to be a head coach, and he gets a little bit of a start here in a win-win situation for him. I mean, there's no expectations on this Colts team the rest of the season. You fire your coach mid-season and you're not playoff hopes are out the door right there.
Shit, we've seen, if we know anything about ownership not giving a damn about interim head coaches, Raiders canned Gruden mid-season last year. Rich Bisaccia leads them to the playoffs, and then he still loses his job. So if we know anything about these owners, they still want to handpick their guy. Big time. I like you said, I don't think this is a long-term play for the Colts, but Jim Irsay, man, he's so off the rocker right now, going after Phillip Rivers, then washed up Phillip Rivers, washed up Carson Wentz, washed up Matt Ryan. Does he offer their first-round pick to Green Bay for washed up Aaron Rodgers in the offseason?
Gosh. I mean, if you're the Colts right now, you're wanting to lose the rest of the games and get in one of these 3 quarterbacks. It's going to be.
I'm just saying, Jim Irsay's track record is not all that impressive when it comes to patience. No,
but I think that if he takes a good hard look in the mirror, he needs to realize that third time, what is it? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I'm just a jackass. So I think he needs to get.
Well, we already know he's a jackass. Just double down.
Yeah.
Double down on the jackassery.
Big time.
All right. Well, I want to kick it. I want to stay in the AFC, I suppose, and go over to the surprise strong division in probably the entire NFL. And that's the AFC East with 3 teams.
You mean the AFC Beast?
Yeah, we were calling that the AFC least for the last, how many seasons? And no, we thought Buffalo was the only bright spot in this division. And now we've got 3 teams with 6 wins. New England's sitting there in 4th place with an above 500 record.
Yep.
The Jets and the Dolphins have both beaten Buffalo. Those are Buffalo's 2 losses, are to the Jets and to Miami. What is this just football? Like, is this just the NFL? This is like The Jets had an awesome draft. They were the joke of the entire league. They have one great draft. Now they're 6-3. Miami consistently underachieving. New coach, bring in Tyreek Hill, bring in a new left tackle. And now they're 6-3 as well, and look to be like, they're going to end up probably with one of those wild card spots, and their offense looks completely different. It's Tyreek Hill has just changed that entire offense so much. This is what the Dolphins were dreaming of when they brought in Mike Wallace, the speedster former Steeler.
Jeez.
I think that was the hope, but God, 3 teams with 6 wins, last place, and above 500 record. What do we do here?
Yeah, it's a fun division. Wow, that's weird saying. It's a fun division to watch play football. We just saw the Jets take down the Bills this last weekend. Buffalo's got a few injuries on defense, so I think couple that with some cold weather games coming up, I still like them for that division title. But man, like you said, Miami's been on a roll. Mike McDaniels has really turned around their offense, getting the most out of Tua, where Tua looks like he could be their long-term franchise player down in Miami. You got Tyreek Hill there, Jalen Waddle, one of the best 1-2 punches in all of football at the wide receiver position. And Mostert and Jeff Wilson are pretty solid in the backfield. We saw that this last week against Chicago. Jeff Wilson coming over in that trade from San Francisco, finds the end zone, and great receiving running back there. And then, like you said, the Jets have just a fantastic draft this last year. Their offense is doing okay. They're just doing what they need to do. But man, they've got the rookie of the year so far on defense in Sauce Gardner. Sauce has just been shutting down everybody coming his way. So that's helped them out a ton. Their defense looks pretty solid right now. And New England, I think they're going to end up falling. I don't know that they can keep up. I think their schedule right now has favored them to the record that they're at right now. Ramondre Stevenson's been an absolute beast, but if you're going to have to lean on Mac Jones and you find a team that can shut down that run game for New England, they're going to be in big trouble. But no, this is a absolutely fantastic division that we thought was going to be a Buffalo runaway, but I think this division is going to come down to the last couple of weeks of the season, and for sure getting at least one, if not 2 wildcard teams from this division.
Let's do a quick Miami Dolphins revisiting from that 2021 draft. So they had the number 3 overall pick. The Niners traded up from the 12th pick, so they traded that number 3 overall pick to the Niners. Niners took Trey Lance. For the Niners 12th overall pick, plus 2 first rounders and a third. Dolphins traded one of their first rounders plus that Niners 12th overall up to the Eagles to 6. Dolphins end up grabbing Jalen Waddle with that 6th overall pick.
Waddle.
Eagles took Devonta Smith at 12. With one of those San Fran first round picks, that was in the Tyreek Hill deal. So Miami's done an awesome job in moving these picks around and getting Waddle, getting Tyreek Hill. They're here to stay, and you can make a genuine argument that Tyreek Hill deserves to be in the conversation for NFL MVP. He is he's the fastest player to 1,000 yards in a single season in NFL history. Yes, a lot of these stats now are obviously way, more inflated than they were in the past, but still, to get to 1,000 yards through 9 games, that's incredibly impressive. Tua, in the 6 games that he's started and finished, is 6-0. This Miami team is super legit. The 3 games they've lost are in games that Tua didn't start or finish. Or start and finish, I should say. So I think Miami's here to stay for a while. I love their aggression going out and getting Bradley Chubb. That was also one of the first rounders that they acquired in one of these trades, was moved to go get Bradley Chubb. So with all this flurry of moves that they made revolving around that 2021 draft, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, 3 cornerstones to that offense and that defensive pass rush for years to come. Really nice work from that Miami GM.
No, for sure. Moving over to let's go to the NFC North, Jill, and Vikings running away with this one. I think they've got a 4-game lead right now in the division over the Bears and Packers. So that's pretty much wrapped up. But I know one thing you were looking forward to discussing is the Bears versus the Packers versus the Lions, just kind of the future of these franchises and what I guess is to come. I mean, right now it looks like the Packers are obviously in a downward trend from where they've been the last couple of years. The Bears, offense, the last couple of weeks has been on fire. Justin Fields, it seems like they're finally utilizing him how they should and going to his strengths in that offense. And the Lions are hanging around. I mean, they've been kind of injury plagued too. I mean, DeAndre Swift has been hurt a lot of the season. That's their main focal point on the offense. But you've got some young receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. Have not seen it yet this year. His way. So we'll see hopefully him in a month or so. But not sure on the quarterback position there. Jared Goff, you would imagine they'd move on from him after this season. Detroit's probably one of those teams that's going to be looking to draft a quarterback in the first round. But yeah, I guess what do you see on the outlook long-term for these teams?
I mean, I think the obvious upward trending team is the Bears. They are finally embracing Justin Fields and what he's good at. There's no more, Matt Nagy, Mahomes type of an offense where it's, drop him back and make him scan the field and try or run this West Coast offense that they had been trying to get him to do. Even in the beginning of this season, it looked like the Bears were kind of trying to see, with Fields, make him make throws. And they finally are like, you know what? Fields is dynamic as all hell on the ground. Let's get him into open space and let him make plays. He's never going to be the most accurate, most dynamic distributor, most dynamic passer out there. But neither is Lamar Jackson. And we saw last night on Monday Night Football, Lamar only had less than 150 yards passing, but he did a lot of damage on the ground. He made throws when he needed to, and their red zone efficiency was awesome. That's what the Bears are doing now. They're letting Fields use his legs. They're rolling him out. They're getting him into open space where he's not in this congested pocket which is where he struggles. They're getting him out into open space. And if he sees an open receiver, he can go after it and he can make throws. We saw that dime that he threw to Mooney in the end zone. That was money for Mooney.
When he starts taking off too, it just gives the defense one more element that they have to try and plan for. And you saw how efficient he was as a passer. That's all that they need him to do is just be efficient. He had 123 yards, but 3 touchdowns, no turnovers at all. And the defense just didn't know what to do with him. You saw in that 60-yard touchdown run, he topped out at, I think, 21 miles an hour.
He's so fast. That's
so
crazy.
fast. He had multiple Miami Dolphins. I think there's a quote I saw on The Athletic that Tyreek Hill pretty much after the game was asked about Justin Fields, and Tyreek Hill was like, I didn't know Justin Fields was that fast. Like there was a bunch of guys just commenting on his speed and how he just broke away from that Miami defense and just was like, yeah, deuces, I'm out of here. It was, an unbelievable run.
Clearly Bears are trending up and it feels like it's refreshing to see them shift from just like, hey, let's try to win this game 14-9. Now they're like, let's go. Let's get this offense going and really try to put up a ton of points instead of just trying to win these garbage games.
As a Bears fan, though, it was also frustrating watching that game outside of, I think, the last 2 drives that Miami had where the Bears defense stopped them. Up until that point, man, that defense could not stop a wet paper bag. It was terrible, which, again, the Bears offense was matching the Dolphins for a while there, and it was cool seeing that offense, but also, I'm sure they'll address that in the draft. They got some nice draft picks from some of the guys that they unloaded, Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith. But man, that was it was rough to watch the defense on Sunday. That's for sure.
I still think they need another wideout, and they need to do more for that offensive line. But that offensive line becomes a little bit less important when you're letting Fields do what he's best at, which is get out into open space. So absolutely trending up. I mean, Lions, they're just still so far away, which is disappointing. I don't know what to make out of them. And the Packers, I just suggested Rodgers might go to the Colts. So obviously trending way down there. I got one last thing that I want to knock out real quick. And that's that number 2 seed in the AFC, or number 2 overall team. Who knows how the playoff standings are going to end up shaking out. But I think right now we can say pretty confidently that the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I think depending on the day, Buffalo give them a run, but I think the Chiefs right now they're clicking. Their defense is playing pretty solid for the most part. I mean, they haven't really faced a ton of dynamic quarterbacks coming from the other direction, but I would agree that the Chiefs, I mean, their offense is on fire right now with a frustrating fantasy offense. So I think you texted us that on Sunday.
Mahomes night, is the only guy that's reliable Kelsey, on that whole offense.
Yeah.
Well, Kelsey, yeah, you're right. But so that brings me to the conversation of who's that number 2 team in the AFC between Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. And I think it's easy, it's easy to say, oh, obviously Buffalo, but I don't know, man. I mean, Cincinnati, the way they've been rolling, Mixon coming off of a 5-touchdown game. If Cincinnati can get that run game going, and the way that they really hadn't all season up until this past week against Carolina, if they can get that going, Buffalo they don't run the ball at all. And then Baltimore, there's been a ton of games where they've been up double digits, and they've lost multiple games that they've been up double digits. If they can learn how to finish games, Baltimore should be right there as well. So I think that, I mean, yeah, you want to just say, oh, Buffalo, but I think we have a very, very legitimate conversation between Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Baltimore right now as the team that ends up facing the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I would agree that right now it is one of those 3 teams, and they've all got their flaws. You'd mentioned Buffalo. They're not very dynamic on offense. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say they have a run game. It's Josh Allen. That's it.
Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He needs a break sometimes, man.
Touchdowns last week. We'll see. I mean, they traded for Nyheim Hines, who's a good pass catching back. So we'll see if they can work him in, get some of those short dump off screen plays going. But they need to establish the ground game and get that defense where it's not just focused on stopping the pass. You mentioned Cincinnati right now fighting without Jamar Chase, had an absolute monster week this last week against Carolina. Joe Mixon, we'll get into him a little bit tomorrow. He can go. Yeah, I don't want to say anything bad because I actually do like Joe Mixon, but yeah, and the Drew Locks. But the week before, just get absolutely railed by Cleveland Browns. I mean, they couldn't do anything the prior week. And then you've got Baltimore, which, like you said, they've been giving up huge leads the first few weeks. Granted, we saw last night New Orleans wasn't doing anything against them, and their defense looked legit. So we'll see if some of the moves that they've made, bringing in Roquan and maybe just kind of getting settled in and everything, if they can get that figured out. But yeah, all 3 of these teams you face on any given week, and they could easily give the Chiefs a run for their money. Those 3 teams could easily beat one another depending on the week, but they've got flaws that they need to figure out. I would say right now, I would probably give the edge to Baltimore maybe because their offense has been putting up points. It's just getting that defense figured out. And if they can get that defense figured out where they're just not giving up as many points and letting other teams close that gap, they could be the team to beat in that 2 seed.
Totally.
Any other tidbits, Joe, before we wrap this guy up?
I'm all set.
All right. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Dead Arm Sports into that YouTube search bar. Subscribe, click the bell so that way you know when our live episodes drop. Again, we monitor that chat, so you can ask us any questions there. If you miss our live feed, you can send any questions to our socials. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports on all of our social media platforms. Individually, Gel can be found at Dawson Gel. I can be found at Dawson JPEG. You can send us in any questions, comments there. If you have any segments you want us to talk about or dive into a topic a little bit deeper, trade deadline's coming up for a lot of your fantasy leagues, so you can send us in any fantasy related questions as well. We love those and are more than happy to answer those on here. And subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot and we will get you some swag. What are some of those platforms, Joe?
Hit us up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review to your chosen listening platform. Take a screenshot of that written review. Send it to us on our socials at Dead Arm Sports, and we will love you forever. And you'll get a little extra swag. One more reminder: YouTube, Dead Arm Sports. Hit that bell. Get our notifications. And when we go live, that way you are able to jump into that chat box on the live feed. And we'll hit you up. We'll get any questions that you come along with answered right away.
Again, appreciate everybody out there listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, if you could tell somebody that you know, that would help us out greatly. Spread the word on Dead Arm Sports. We will be back with you tomorrow, give you a preview of week 11 NCAA, and finally hit double digits with the NFL. Week 10 is upon us. Almost
crazy.
Almost through bye weeks. I think we still have like 3 more weeks to go, but we're rolling through. Close her out, Joe.
No offensive coordinator. In comes Jeff Saturday. Coaching staff, 1 man short. We call that a power play. Ooh.